welcome to another episode of Design on Purpose. I'm here at Bangtao MMA and Muay Thai with Anwar Gilbert, the mobility coach here at Bangtao. Welcome, Anwar.
Thank you. How are you? I'm
very good, very good. Good to be back at Bangtao. Now, I've been doing your mobility classes here, like, I don't know, probably over the last, year or so.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot out of it. Could you give a little context about what you do here with your mobility coaching?
Yeah, I get an opportunity to teach like an hour class of mobility, and really, I don't know, I've broken it down to a lower body day, an upper body day, a spine day, a lower body day again, an upper body day. And within those contexts, I try to improve the range, build strength, create more capacity, just really, I don't know. I teach a mobility class.
Because it is a funny thing, Anwar, you see a lot of people walking past here when we're doing the mobility stuff, and it is kind of funny looking what we do here.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're not really doing any rapid movements in here. It's all very mindful, and a lot of the work that you're doing in here is like brain work, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like neuro connections.
Kind of, yeah. I took the influence from a guy called Moshe Feldenkrais in the last couple of years, and he talks about learning and trying to bring more awareness into anything you're trying to learn. And in that space of being aware, you give your brain, we'll call it, or the body, an optimal opportunity to learn, to absorb that knowledge. So when we're doing movements, we're not just doing random movements. I'm asking you to compare your left side, your right side. I'm asking you to, pay attention to where your head is in space, move your pelvis separate from your shoulders, or move your elbow
which is actually so hard to do. Yeah. Like after we worked a little bit here the other day, and you were showing me that hip stuff, we were just sitting back here.
Yeah.
And I
want to see it actually. No, I can't. I want to see your progress.
I just did it. I just spent a bit of time there, but the whole day I've been thinking, can I actually move my pelvis? And I've realized that I just don't have the neuro, I just don't have that connection there yet.
You do. You had it originally. So the stuff I'm asking you to do comes from developmental kinesiology, which is kind of like what got us to initially stand and walk. And it takes 2.5 years. I think it's 2.5 years to do this. Stand on one leg, hands above, looking up. So
you mean as babies?
As a baby, we have every stage of this development. At 3 months, we lift the head, we lift the legs, we start to roll all the way from crawling to learning to stand to running and walking. And all of that takes 2.5 years. So the stuff that we're doing in class is almost putting you into those original developmental stages.
Yeah.
And then just getting the brain to almost remember, not like refire. It's not learning anything new. But all we've done over the years is we originally had that code, and then, but after it probably happens earlier, but we get this socializing, the way we sit, the way we look, the way we, you're probably going to squat like your mum. If your mum was your main caregiver and you saw her bend over every day and turn around. And so the gestures and the mannerisms and the style of the way we move ourselves in space is added on seconds. But the original code to stand and walk was in there. So we're all going to do that.
Yeah.
And then as we get older, we get injuries, we change our habits, our postures, the way we're sitting, the way we would spend our time, and our body adapts to those changes. But sadly, in those adaptations, there may be more environmental-based adaptations, but they're not how would I say it? They're not going to serve you more as a human, which is, the fundamentals of movement, like bending, running, squatting, twisting,
throwing,
lunging, throwing, swinging, swimming, all of these things that we've been here as humans longer doing that than we have sitting in chairs.
Yeah, my teacher talks about this too, like my design, one of my design teachers, and where I learned this co-design methodology, and he was saying this is the first time in the history that we know that we are the results or the produce of a synthetic environment.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially a feedback loop with your environment. So we create our environment, and in our environment creates us.
Yeah.
So we've created this synthetic environment, and now it's creating us, and there's a lot of dysfunctions there.
So many, even to the state of like, we have these massive cities when there's no local produce, everything's kind of shipped in. Like we don't even have a big ecosystem, let alone our physical, the environment that we can even control is just then modeled around like we had to set up our chairs. I didn't want to sit on a certain height. I'm more comfortable here, but most of us will buy the same chairs and have the same table height. And I'm a certain height, but obviously we're going to speak to Pete. Pete's this much taller than me and we share the same seat. And
isn't that strange?
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. I mean, there's a lot of, like I mentioned when I was setting up, there's a lot of crossover with the design methodology I use and all this system stuff. But as you know, I've had like a whole journey with my posture, still going. Like I still got a lot to do, but it's incremental improvements. But like the most obvious thing that you think to do is to go to where the dysfunction is. Like for me, I had this rolled in shoulder, and the obvious thing for me to do was try and get that shoulder out, but it hasn't started opening until I started looking at things as a system. And it's actually, it's probably actually connected to that hip that is a little bit stuck, so makes sense, right, with that sling there.
Sure.
But like, how do you, like, probably a lot of people have these kind of dysfunctions. Well, probably most people have these dysfunctions.
You've got something along, maybe.
Like, how do they get to starting to resolve some of these dysfunctions? Like, where's the place to start? Like, where to look at? Because you're bringing in like quite a few of these methodologies. Like, I know we've talked about, the David Weck stuff that you bring in. And I know you worked with Steve Cotter.
Yep.
And there was another coach that you mentioned there.
Yeah, like,
and we've looked at some of the functional pattern stuff, which I've done quite a bit of.
I think there's so much FRC. There's so many cool mobility certifications out there, and people doing really interesting stuff. I think find a mobility coach. Someone's probably onto something, at least if they're calling themselves a mobility coach and want to improve those areas. But I think just trying to bring awareness into the movements that you're doing, either daily, habitual in life, or even the movements that you would do in the gym training. We might do, a lot of people talk about when they're pushing the bench press, their right arm might push more than the left arm.
Yeah, mine does that.
The bend bar rotates. So then it's paying attention to that specific thing and trying to improve that movement more than trying to load the bar and doing more reps. So like, if you can shift your mind, like you'll see it in class, rather than saying we're going to do this for 10 reps, I'll put a timer on and we're going to do this for 90 seconds. And that takes you away from getting this result of going, I need to do X
this
amount.
Many things, yeah.
And I then have to just pay attention to whatever it might be, bending the knee, straightening the knee, twisting it, bending it, straightening it. And in that space of going away from the goal of X amount of reps and going, okay, I want to think about improving my movement quality. I want to feel good at the end of this. Even if it's going to a 1 rep max and working your hardest, yes, I might come out feeling fatigued, but I don't want to walk out feeling broken and run down.
Yeah.
Because that's taken me beyond the point of diminishing returns. That's broken my system. That's forced a result out of something where it just didn't need to be, rather than going back to the bar analogy, just you have a minute and a half to do a bench press, and I want you to go slow and controlled, continue to move. If you feel the difference in your left hand and your right hand, or your left foot and your right foot, or in your pelvis, and as you bring that bar close to the chest and take it away, is every rep getting better over this 90 seconds, rather than am I getting to a point where I break down and fuck things up and feeling injured at the end of this? Because then there's just poor movement quality.
Yeah, it's a really different way of thinking about things, like when I used to be row surf boats, so we used to do a lot of weight training and a lot of rotation, like to one way. That's probably why I'm quite a bit twisted, but It's
Power
just
coming
like,
through.
you know, like I would row out this way, but
Yeah.
always to the same side. I was always bow side. So
Okay.
that makes a lot of sense why I'm a bit rotated like that. But
100%. You would have had to have a fixed pelvis.
oh, and I would crunch down that way,
Yeah.
and then I would come back up. So it makes, and then the gunnel was here, so
Yeah.
I would have to go over that way. So I had this really weird movement.
Yeah.
But like it's, you know, we would go into the gym to like get our ergs in, get our erg scores down, increase our weights on the bench or the legs and things like that. Like, but now when I go to the gym, I kind of treat it like I'm playing with some toys, you know, like I'll come in and I'll see like, okay, what does my body intuitively feel like I need to, like, be kind of like being like a mechanic or something, you know, like I'm not obviously as experienced as you are, but I just kind of feel into my body and try and work out. Yeah, it's good, and it makes things fun. You don't always have to go to the gym and have like a crazy hard workout.
No, I like, there's so much from that. Like, it's, of course, if you're doing something in a professional environment, there's going to be an element of just going in and getting stronger, more powerful, more explosive. Obviously, if there's a weight class involved, then you've got to keep that within a category of going, I can't improve muscle mass or weight. So there's these reasons why we'll go in and do these, I just got to go and do X amount of sets and X amount of reps. But if that's your primary focus, you're definitely moving yourself further away from being a human. And obviously that might get you closer to being the athlete that you want to be. But if you're going to do that at the sacrifice of clicking your shoulder every time you go to do something and manipulating your body out of this alignment in order to achieve numbers on a bar, I just think that's where people lose shelf life in sport.
Like you see it too, don't you? Like in certain sports or modalities, so people start moving the same, you know, like a CrossFitter, like they're very boxy, like they're very stiff in their movement from what I've seen. I mean, some of them can be and
that might work, obviously, if there's a lot more lifting involved in the sport of, say, CrossFit more than running or changing directions and rotating. Of course, all of that's involved, but if you've got to stand in one place, pick up a heavy thing many, many times. We're talking about environments changing and shaping. Your own bone structure and tissue arrangement is going to adapt to that sport. And again, you might be great because you can qualify for X or you win a championship, but let's say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, whatever it is later, those patterns that you put into your body have then limited your ability to even bend over properly or walk or turn and rotate because you're really strong here, but you can't, everything's still anchored into that. And I think that's where it was great with like functional patterns and WEX stuff. They were talking about just being strong in rotation, being strong, like train your spine to be able to be more dynamic, to hold the middle, hold the end range on the side, versus stiffen and brace the spine, don't move anything here, and then be really strong in this
one plane of motion, right? Because they say that the true measure of athleticism is rotation, like the ability to. Would you say that's like I've heard this? I've seen a bit of this online.
I would definitely. It depends on what you're measuring of rotation, but the ability to come out of center alignment and come back to center alignment, I think that's you hear me say in class all the time. It's one of the most foundation things that we need to be able to do is control our spine in whatever range and position that you want it to be in, but then be able to come back. So that's the fundamentals of walking or crawling or swimming. This opposite gait pattern has flexion, lateral flexion, lateral flexion, and rotation involved in just walking. So even in a very mild walk, you're getting rotation constantly through the system. And if you're training anti-rotation, we're amazing creatures that will still do the thing. We'll still walk, but we'll walk at the sacrifice of a joint that shouldn't do that thing, but it's going to do it for you because you've stiffened this and you haven't allowed it to rotate, but you then want your hips and arms to move through this gait pattern. So you've taken yourself away from that rotation. But
I'm obsessed with this now. Like, I can't stop looking at it in people. Like, just sitting on the beach, just watching people's movement patterns. And you can see, like, as they walk, like, not having structural integrity, like that stuff that you teach us around the inter-abdominal pressure, you know, that makes so much sense. Like, actually having pressure in your cavity. When I started on my functional patterns journey, obviously there was a lot of myofascial release.
Yeah.
Like, it was a 10-week course, but I think I didn't get all the way through even in a year because I just had so much myo to do. I was just so dehydrated in my tissue. But it's just the next part of that, I went and got a functional patterns coach, and like he was this big Maori guy, Michael Ripakoi, and he basically he would do a lot of myo, but he had these lines on the floor. Have you seen them do that? And they just put these 2 lines, and then he started teaching me like my gait cycle.
Yeah.
So that was like the first kind of start of the movement, trying to put in the patterns for me.
Yeah.
Because I had no rotation at all really when I probably was rotated more to one side, but
probably
not
stuck in rotation.
Yeah, I was stuck to one side.
Yeah.
So like I'd never thought about the gait cycle, and like you said, like you know, watching your parents, you know, my dad walks with his feet out. He's very kyphotic, and you don't realize that like that comes all the way through.
It's going to be it for sure. Yeah. However, our foundation's either in our hips when we're sitting, obviously shared with the feet. When we're walking, is coming from the feet. And if the whole, like we'll talk about myofascia, obviously, someone like Anatomy Trains, Tom Myers.
Oh yeah, I love this stuff.
Has really brought that to the forefront of an understanding of the human body as a complete system rather than a separate system. So kind of like what I was training 25 years ago is training in isolation in more of a bodybuilding form, thinking that that's going to make me more athletic, which has then only made my elbow flex more under this strain, but not integrated how my elbow bends in relationship with my shoulder. And then when you see these fascial lines, and I'm talking about the slings.
Yeah, because there's like 7 of them, right? There's the fronts, the superficial back, the laterals, and then you got the spiral, you've got arm lines, you've got the deep front line, and that's kind of like your core. So that's attached to your axial skeleton. And that's a bit what I teach in class. So my spine class is based around that. So I'm thinking cranium, rib cage, whole spine, down to the sacrum and coccyx. And then I'm thinking about the relationship of where the shoulder blades kind of connect, or the arm connects to this body, and then where the legs via the pelvis connect to the spine. And then as you're trying to move, you're either stabilizing the deep front line, which is why we then talk about intra-abdominal pressure. Rather than being this stiffened brace, it's actually creating this outward force, which essentially balances your rib cage and pelvis together more efficiently. Yeah, I've seen Naudi give an example of this where he gets like a tube of toothpaste.
Okay.
And he shows like a new tube of toothpaste is like solid, you know, it's got the pressure in it. And then as you age, the pressure starts squeezing out of this toothpaste, and you know, that starts crumpling in. Yeah,
that's a great analogy for sure. It's like I was shown one that was talked about the accordion and the water balloon. So think of your thoracic rib cage as an accordion, which can change volume and pressure. And then you've got the water balloon, which can't change volume but can increase in pressure. And they have this relationship with each other. And what we're often doing is not moving this rib cage into the right pressure downwards into this water balloon to maintain pressure, like equal pressure throughout.
Yeah.
So instead of this efficient accordion movement, it's typically upper thoracic, upper cervical breathing.
Which when you're doing that, that's like putting you in a sympathetic state, right? You're in fight or flight.
Yeah,
so
mechanically.
Your nervous system's like engaged, right?
Our sympathetic nerve ganglia are held at the back of the spine, and just by mechanically breathing into the chest and rib cage is going to stimulate the nerve ganglia enough. Yeah, exactly. Just breathing in your upper chest into your back is going to make the mechanical pumps of your body feel like you're more in stress or preparing for stress.
Yeah.
Positive potentially if you're going to get ready for a run, but
and then that obviously has other impacts too. You know, you think about that chemically, like stress hormones, cortisol, it starts
100%.
creating other responses in your body. So it's like super important. You don't realize, like most people probably, I didn't realize that this is all connected. Like breath, how important is breath, do you think, like with the whole mobility thing?
Well, breath is our first movement, I think, really, that we have. We get this heartbeat, which initiates, like the way the heart, the brain, the diaphragm, and the lungs grow in embryology and interact and move with each other. Before we've moved anything else, that is our deepest, oldest movement. And if we're not paying attention to how we breathe, where we breathe, the state of our system, like my emotional state as I'm bringing awareness to the breathing, whether that's in training, then you're kind of just doing yourself a disservice to potentially even a bad breakdown of going, I'm going to overtrain and overstress my body in a kind of movement or a mechanical way in order to achieve this goal. Let's go back to the training. I'm going to hold my breath and strain to try and push a weight, where I would either want to pay attention. Can I do the weight on an inhale? Can I do the weight on an exhale? Can I do the weight if I held my breath in? Can I do the weight if I hold my breath out? And no matter what is happening in my body, I want to be able to not have it affect the way I breathe.
Yeah.
And then in turn, be strong in the way I breathe and actually train that as a system.
I saw you the other day too in kettlebells. You're like swinging, like, because you're quite strong, you know. Like how tall?
I'm only a little guy.
How tall are you? How short are you?
5'6".
Yeah, and you were swinging. I saw you got up to double swings. You were on the red kettlebells. What are they? 32 kilos each, so 64 kgs.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
I've been working hard. I've been training hard for sure.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the breath just...
And I'm paying attention to my breathing while I'm doing it.
No, and I'm paying attention to you paying attention to your breathing.
Pete teaches a double exhale, which is like Steve Cutter, I think, brought that in as well, where...
It's like a run.
Just by exhaling with a bit of force, you're gonna basically support the lumbar spine, and then at the bottom of the swing or the top of the swing where the spine is in most risk, you're using an exhale to stabilize, which is great. But I'm then also trying to do it in apnea or trying to do reduced breathing or trying to...
What's that? You're like box breathing or something?
I'm either doing box breathing. So I'll do box breathing on my warm-up, and then I'll look to do a couple of forceful exhales just when I start to go heavy and maybe my first 2 rounds. And then I'm trying to go from that hard exhalation to... I still feel like I'm producing the same amount of force. I don't want to slow down my ability to...
But is that... Are you able to do that because you're built up the abdominal pressure so you don't need to top it up as much? Is that the thinking behind it? Kind
of, yeah. I'll do an intra-abdominal pressure spinal kind of warm-up, making sure that... So I'll do a lot of static holds. I do my warm-up a little different, where I'm holding it in like an end-range position with the quite a heavy weight initially, maybe at the beginning, but enough to feel that my intra-abdominal pressure has me stabilized and my whole body's relaxed.
Yeah.
Not that I'm tensing and bracing and squeezing and engaging something. I want to be able to maintain control of that weight whilst maintaining my breath, whilst not feeling like I've got extra stress or pressure somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was what I'll do to warm up, and then take that into playing around when I'm training.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I've been really getting into the kettlebells. I'm looking forward to talking a bit more about them with Pete tomorrow night.
Yeah.
But how did you discover all this, Anwar? Like, what was the journey there? Is this a Pandora's box, or
it's kind of a Pandora's box? Every time someone asks me, the story's different because I just remember something else with it. But I started personal training when I was kind of like 18. I did some coaching before that, gym stuff, but I was training at the gym. I enjoyed it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I then went around the whole personal trainer, bodybuilding. At one point, I was something like 85, 86 kilos, just heavy lifting, And then I got into jiu-jitsu. So that was when I was about 21. I think I started jiu-jitsu, 20 or 21. And I couldn't raise my arm above my head. So I started doing, I looked great. I was bodybuilding, but if someone did that to my arm in jiu-jitsu, I would tap. And after my first class, I was like, fuck, this is terrible. Like, I really, so then I started going to yoga. I did Bikram yoga for almost a year. I did it 3 times a week.
I liked Bikram too.
Yeah. So I did that, and it kind of suited my personality at the time.
Because it's really intense.
It's horrible. It's fucking,
It's intense.
I don't want to be there.
Like a Japanese ham sandwich.
Yeah. What's a Japanese ham sandwich?
You know, like in the script, they say, bring your knees. You know, they have a script for Bikram.
Yeah. Yes.
But you know the Japanese ham sandwich.
I don't know the Japanese ham sandwich.
They say that in the script. They have the same script every time. They say, bring yourself close, tight, like a Japanese ham sandwich. I don't know what that is.
Maybe my teachers didn't say, or maybe I wasn't, maybe I was already dying by then, but fuck that. Yeah. So I did Bikram, and then I kind of matured out of Bikram and liked yoga. So I did my yoga teacher training, and that I think opened up bringing, my first thoughts of bringing, like, I wouldn't say mobility, it was more like bringing this yoga shit to this training shit and trying to periodize it into the same training program. So then it would like optimize my time. So instead of doing a bench press and then resting for a minute or two, I would do these warm-up exercises or these preparation exercises. And then I might do a stability exercise, and that might be my 2-minute rest. And then I would do something for the bench, and I found that things were improving that. And then I just, over that, I'd say 5 years, I just heard about other coaches doing those same things and calling it like, it's the way you would do, that your main lift might be a bench press, but you're going to go in and do a plank for 15 seconds to engage your core, following into some sort of end range isometric holds in a push-up, where you would want the weight of the bar to stop, and then do the exercise, and then do another exercise at the end to make the shoulder feel better, ready for your next series. So that started my idea of doing these, I wouldn't call them mobility exercises, but these just prehab
a bit more
and
dynamic,
rehab exercises, and then 13 years ago, I heard about DNS, which is dynamic neuromuscular stabilization.
Is that a Czech thing? Or?
Czech thing, yeah. So I ended up getting broken a few years ago. So I ended up moving to the Czech Republic for my rehab and my physio, and I was there for a year. And I did DNS, I did Feldenkrais, I did red cords, I did Kung Fu and Tai Chi and Qigong, and every morning, like, there was just this big rehabilitation year that I had out there, and I learned a lot.
Was this your back injury?
This was my neck.
Oh, your neck.
My neck and my
you
jaw,
did neck.
Yeah, dislocated my head. Well, my mate dislocated my head, and all the tissue kind of rewinding back to all my bodybuilding days, not my bodybuilding days, but time when I was lifting those really heavy weights, it basically fucked me up. So after I damaged my neck and they MRI'd my spine, I had so many prolapses and herniations in my back that were like, it was weird because I had backache, I had knee ache, but I do jiu-jitsu, I lift weights. I just thought these aches and pains were like normal. But when I eventually then fucked my neck up, got this image of my spine and saw how really kind of,
what, you got X-rays or something?
MRIs, yeah. Yeah, it was crazy how flat my lumbar spine looked, how these hard angles in my spine. So instead of having these, like, you see an image of a spine, they've got this nice healthy space. You got the shape of the spine themselves. You got these,
like the vertebra.
These vertebrae in the middle, this beautiful space. And then mine would be like these misshapen spines because they'd been in that position for so long.
Like a wedge or something. Yeah. I've got a little bit of that, but I think like do you ever fix the wedge, or you can? Does it grow back?
Yeah. It's like, your bone turns over all the time. You've got these, like, I think it's the head of the femur turns over every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So if you have a really bad hip now, don't worry, I can't remember how deep it is, but I think it's something like 10 millimeters of the femur, both at the level of the femur and the acetabulum, so the capsule, is new in 3 months. We're saying new, but we model what we have. So in those 3 months, if you don't do anything to improve your range,
it's just going to be the same.
That remodeling in 3 months is going to look exactly the same, maybe worse, give you less.
Yeah.
Because if we've sat in these positions for all day, your body wants to be efficient. So in 3 months, the efficiency is to actually keep your hips more fixed in flexion.
Yeah.
And give you less of an ability to go into extension or neutral, should I say.
Yeah.
Because you're spending most of your time here, not walking and rotating in the hip.
Yeah,
So real quick, going back to that, like that then happens at every level of every bone. Your bone is soft tissue. Like your bone it's bendy, it's got blood in there. It's only hard when the water dries out and the minerals stay.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas you can bend bones quite significantly. Like I had my fibula, and when we first did it to me, it felt crazy because you can feel it in the muscle, you can feel it roll around in relationship to the other bone, and it's just this big movement that I don't know that you just don't think that bone that thing can do that movement.
Yeah, well, we're always looking at like those model skeleton kind of things, right? That's kind of like how our brain
we think it's this solid scaffolding when it's not. Like I know FP guy talks about it a lot. But he's taking it from Anatomy Trains, whereas Tom Myers talks of it. It's like we're this biological system. We're a human cell. We're not this separate, this is an arm, and I know I've got my classes there because it's just easier to break it down, but we're not this individual system. We're like a whole complete system. We grow as a seed. We're not built like a car. So the way we move, we rotate, we bend, we twist, it's happening in your whole body. So, like we're talking about the lines, the superficial front line. Your toe is connected fascially when you move it like that to these muscles that come round to the back of the eye. And like a piece of tissue like this, moving it influences change.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Further up. So, it's really cool. Really cool stuff.
It's I
can't remember what you were talking about,
but you were talking about how you got into it. So this was like a journey of like healing your own body, wasn't it?
Kind of. Every time I got fucked up, injured, I would try and see a chiropractor, an osteo, a physio, and they would help. But I realized I realized more recently, let's say in the last 6 years with my last injury, but I realized that it's in the way we carry and move ourselves and hold ourselves in space and then perform the task that is actually the most important thing, rather than, like I was saying before, achieving this goal. I don't want to achieve the goal. I want to make sure that my head, my rib cage, and my pelvis stay in the correct relationship to each other, whilst being able to maintain a very low, non-stressed upper thoracic breath, which will negatively affect my nervous system while trying to perform this task, which might be trying to roll over and choke someone out or avoid a head kick. We're still going to try and do that dynamically on the jiu-jitsu mats or in a Muay Thai ring. That's obviously an extreme, that's the end result. Like we can roll, and if it's not too stressful for me, I can hold my breath for 45 seconds in apnea whilst delivering rear naked chokes and arm bars and whatever else we're trying to do without needing to take a breath.
Yeah.
And just having trained that. And yeah, I divert again, but that's all of these fuck ups in my injuries is where I learned something new. I learned something better.
Yeah.
I studied. Like my neck injury was kind of like 6 months not walking. So a lot of YouTube, a lot of research, a lot of.
Who was the first guy or person that you saw doing this kind of work? Was it David Weck? Or did he come later? Because you actually trained with David Weck, right?
I went out a
couple
of years ago too. Must be a year and a half ago I was out there. Yeah, I advised Steve as well. So I met Steve through Pete. He came here. We stayed in contact. We did a few like personal training mentor sessions online. And then I wanted to go out. I was already in Colorado doing a dissection with Tom Myers.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
That was super cool.
They do them live sometimes on Instagram.
I watched them live for 2 years during COVID.
Oh, so cool.
Which gave me the balls to actually go and do that. I don't think I would have done them before. had it not been having the opportunity to observe
at a distance, desensitize yourself a little bit.
Really, it was really emotional the first one I saw. It was kind of fucking powerful. And then, fortunately, they kind of ran them every couple of months. So I watched something like 20 dissections before I got into the lab. So I felt like I'd met Tom. I'd had the scalpel in my hand. I was like, I know what I'm doing. And obviously, once you get there, you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, what am I doing? But that was really cool. And just talking about these fascial connections and understanding of the body where, like, I wouldn't have done that had it not been for my injury, having done more research in anatomy trains, then having the opportunity to watch this stuff online. And so, anyway, I was there and then met up with Steve and trained with David in San Diego.
Yeah, that would have been an experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was luckily, going back to what you were saying, I was luckily, sorry, I'll move this out the way. I'd learned from a lot of interesting people over the years and done these little courses. I'd studied DNS 15 years ago, I think.
Did you do your HLC one with Paul Chek or?
No, my friend did. And a guy I worked with, first of all, did his holistic course. I learned a lot. I actually didn't like the shit at the beginning. I hate to say because I love Paul Chek now. I think he's amazing. But
I love Paul Chek.
I don't want to say anything negative either. I didn't like the approach of the guy's way of implementing it. So it's because I didn't understand it, really. Had I known what I know now, and I'm still doing Paul Chek stuff now. I did his programming course online maybe last year.
Yeah.
Great stuff, really good. But had I known, I might have done that as one of my first big courses and maybe gone more.
Yeah, I think I want to do the HLC
Definitely.
one. I'm studying with Paul Chek's faculty member now, Joe Rushton, doing Joe's. They've got like she does more like the spiritual training. She's got a thing called Path of Light and Path of the Heart, and so it's a 3-year course. You do like 3 hours every Tuesday.
Okay.
For like 3 years.
What's involved in that?
Oh, you like a lot of you do it. It's a lot of energy work, learning energy tools, clearings. Like we use a lot of work. We do a lot of work with like these symbols that like represent it, like to clear each of your chakras. Okay. You got to say certain things. It's kind of it's quite trippy. Actually, cool. It's cool. Well, yeah. When I started doing the work with Joe, it's Joe and Ishtar. Mm-hmm. So the lady that she works with. I said to Joe, oh, yeah, I'd like to do this course because she mentioned, and she's like, just be sure because a lot of shit's going to happen in your life, when you start doing this course. Yeah. And then I started doing the course and then everything in my whole fucking life just like completely fell apart. Yeah. Because it was like a big energy shift, anything that wasn't in resonance or wasn't like serving me or like in my highest just was like a full tower, just completely crumbled. So that's when I came here and I've kind of been finding my way again. But
when was that? That was a year and a half ago?
I did that course in 2023. Okay. And then December 2023 is when I came to Bangtao.
That's when you came first time, okay.
So, and then I was just sitting on the beach in Sydney and I just got this message. It was like, you're going to Thailand. And I don't know.
How did you find Bangtao?
Well, do you know the Pars, John Wayne Parr and Angie Parr? Yeah. So I'm friends.
I don't know them, but
yeah. Oh yeah, I'm friends with Angie. I used to train jiu-jitsu with her in on the Gold Coast, and so I messaged Angie and I was like, Angie, like, I feel like I need to go to Thailand. Like, all the shit's just hit the fan for me. So, do you have any suggestions? And she was like, oh my gosh, she goes, this amazing gym, just like new gym, Bangtao. You got to go. You'll love it.
It's cool.
So then I just booked it like the next day pretty much.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like those stories.
It's nice. It was just completely intuitive. I never had really any thought to come here before. And you know what's really weird too is like when we do the podcast, kind of like a tradition of the podcast was always to play Job to Do at the beginning. It was just like a funky song, but I didn't really realize the connection of that song to Thailand.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in Thailand. So it was kind of like I was like bringing it in subconsciously. Yeah. But I've learned a lot here, and it's like, I mean, this is world class, like what you guys are doing here, right? Like from everything, from like the MMA, the kettlebells, fitness training, like the mobility stuff.
It's cool.
Like it's hard. You wouldn't find this many places in the world.
I haven't seen many things like this in the world, and I've traveled a lot, and yeah, I've seen some amazing facilities doing some amazing things, but nothing quite like this. And let's step back. We all kind of met each other at Tiger Muay Thai. We all started there. So I think Tiger.
Were you at Tiger as well?
I was at Tiger as well, yeah. So I left Tiger, I think this year might be 6 years ago. Worked there for a couple of years. So that's where I met Alex, George, Woody, and yeah. So that's kind of, so when they opened this, I was talking to Woody between, I was living in Mexico during the whole COVID thing, and I'd opened a little gym, a little studio out
really?
there. Yeah,
cool.
just something small. And then Woody told me he was opening, and he told me like, I think 2 times, maybe 2 times, and then the 3rd time he was like, hey, you want to come? And I was like, fuck, he's not going to ask me again. So I moved back, just knowing what kind of Tiger, there was this little golden year or 2 years crossover where everything just was running super easy, smooth. And like anything, of course, things change, but things changed quite a bit. And that was part of why I left, and the guy stayed on. And when I knew that they were putting something together, I was like 100% yes, knowing that like 4 mates starting a gym, knowing all of the problems from, let's call it an employee, not problems, but issues that you would have, that you're hearing from the members because you're on the mats every day, knowing things that you would have in your dream ideal situation in your mind, and then training all these professional fighters, hearing what they like, what they don't like. They've obviously then put this thing together, which is pretty cool.
It's so crazy, this place. Like you'll be here like rolling on the mats with some like amazing fighters.
Yeah.
Like Weili Zhang trains right here, doesn't she? Like right here behind us.
Yeah. It's nice that you can be here. And all these fighters are very humble, very respectful to everyone, and it's really nice. But it's still cool that, you know, I get starstruck all the time. I'm like, fuck. Like,
I know, I was here with my friend Jarrett, like when I first came in December, and like we'd spot some fighters like every now and then. We'd be like, oh my God, look over there.
It's nice.
So cool.
So, I was kind of going back to what you were saying at the beginning, like, what do I do? Like, the guys trusted me to run a mobility class where there's not many mobility classes around in the world. I've done pockets of like this training and that training. So then all of the cool mobility classes that I've done and trainings that I've done, they've just given me the opportunity to put shit together. And they trust me to run a mobility class. That, again, saying what you said earlier, that you wouldn't see much like, you wouldn't see many things like this in many places.
No, you don't. And like, and you see the looks of people peering in, you know, like they're kind of like not sure if they should come in or try it. Especially if they're going to be late to class.
Yes. I've been told off about that, so I have to be nicer and just ignore it. Yeah, I'm not allowed to tell people off for.
I kind of like it.
I kind of class, guys. Just fucking. I'm joking.
I kind of like it. It's funny. I was wondering if that was still going to be the case when I came back. I'm like, oh yeah, it hasn't changed. You've been doing this the whole time I've been going, telling people off for being late to class.
More or less. But I have been told to.
It was a bit more mellow this time.
It was way more mellow.
There was less swearing and whatever.
Yeah.
But like, what kind of results are you seeing for people here, Anwar? Because like, you know, I hear people talking about the mobility classes and like some of the fighters getting some crazy results from like even just a few weeks of being in here.
Yeah. Like, people feel it in the first, that's why I always get people to compare straight away.
Yeah, when you stand up and you move, you feel it straight up.
That's what I think. If you're going to spend 3 minutes moving a joint, when you come out of that movement, when you compare it or pay attention to the feeling of it, it should feel so much better. Otherwise, what did you do in those 3 minutes? You didn't optimize the movement. You potentially negatively moved there. So if I can teach someone that in my class, that's really where, or people just feel that. That's really what they're feeling, is just this big shift and this big change. And then if you stick to it, like I think I told you for your homework, my homework is I'm going to give you 2 to 3 exercises that I want you to do 5 times a day for 2 minutes. Not an hour every morning, not 3 times a week or 5 times a week. It's just do these little movements that might be moving the pelvis or moving the spine, and feel those dramatic changes that you feel in that 2 minutes, and just constantly do it. And if people are doing those within like 2 weeks, the pain that they had, or they can't head kick, or their back hurts when they rotate, all of these things just shift.
Yeah.
And it changes. It's really, really cool, actually.
But like those shifts that are they happening in the joint or the tissue, or are they more happening in the connections on the brain, or both? Cause like sometimes I do stuff and like you kind of made that much dramatic difference in the tissue there in like a few 90 seconds, can you? Like, cause you can?
Yeah, really. Really. It's like, if you can bring awareness and isolate a movement and pay attention, like I'm going to show the movement here. If you can pay attention to the movement and like drop your pelvis, lift your pelvis. That's your homework. Drop the pelvis, lift the pelvis, and then tuck under, untuck. Build your awareness of how that feels in this position. Change position, tuck under, laterally shift. There's going to feel difference between these two if you pay attention. Bringing the awareness of the difference feeling is where the change happens. It's not that you did X amount of sets and reps. It will be 2 weeks later, but at the very, very instant, just the fact that you can go here, 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 in all of these different positions, your brain just learned. And then when you try to do something more complicated, like squatting, you're going to feel a difference in your left hip and your right hip because you differentiated it and you brought all of your limbic system and awareness state into that place to feel.
Yeah.
And once you, I've got this one here, and once you get that state of feeling, that's happening at the neurological stage. That's happening if you can bring your frontal cortex into the limbic system state of awareness, your change will happen at the deepest levels and the deepest structures. So then when you go to like the Rix system and some of our movement patterns there, like if you're then trying to do a more complicated thing like a squat, when you squat, you're not going knee flexion, X amount of degrees, ankle flexion. You're just going down and coming up. So many complicated things have to happen in that moment of squatting and standing up.
Yeah. And it's the weirdest thing about it is like, I mean, we learned this in design about tensegrity. It's a Buckminster Fuller thing, actually. It's like tensional integrity.
Yeah.
And, and just for context, that's, it's competing and complementary forces.
Yes.
And like the biggest shift for me in understanding all of that is that you think your body's like stacking like bones or like muscles, but it's actually all these elastics kind of going around at different torque or tensions, right, to have you standing up.
Yeah.
And so it's not just that action, like there's all these things, complexities going to kind of bring that tension in for you to stand up.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's everything working in relationship with each other, not just the knee, the ankle working in relationship to the knee. It's the ankle, the knee, the hip, and where my head is in space, where my head is in relationship to my pelvis in that down and up phase, and keeping this even tensegrity, this even pull of tissues, not overloading one area, even flexion, extension, or
What's the biggest dysfunction you see? Most common?
Pelvis like anteriorly shifted with a lumbar spine that's anteriorly shifted and hyperextended.
And what's that from? I think it's sitting.
I definitely
or shoes.
Sitting. Definitely shoes. It's just how you've managed to hold your pelvis in space. I'm seeing people standing like, and I'm exaggerating it, but like this.
Like a sway back.
Like a sway back. It's just the pelvis shift forwards, everything locked out, everything pushed forwards. And I probably was part of the culprit, but that's where I was telling people to like squeeze the bum as hard as they can, pull the hips through the bar if they were doing a deadlift. So all of this gripping and tensioning to bring us to a position is incorrect, I think, in some of our training. So I find when you were saying sitting balancing your pelvis in one position, but then
I think I'm doing it
when
right
you're
now.
actually going into hip extension, being in this balanced pelvis position, not this, like in a DNS terms, they call it open scissors. So it's this pelvis in this position and then rib cage in this position. And then
because the line, they're looking at the lines there that we're
yeah, so I'm thinking about that. My pelvis is doing this, my rib cage is doing that. So it's this opening at the front.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's every single person I see, every single person I've seen in the last 2 and a bit years of being back here has a version of that.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got that. That's my next project is
That's
the hip stuff. But I've been
saying.
working on my upper back because I had no rhomboids at all.
Upper thoracic is looking great.
Because what about that too? You know, my mum used to hit me on the back and say, "Stand up straight."
Yeah, shoulders back and down.
Shoulders back and down. What do you think about that?
Terrible. I used to say it. That was my cue.
But I would
coach people and train them on this lat pull down to open their chest and pull their shoulders back. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sorry. If I coached you, come to Bangtao. I'll give you a free session if I fucked you up.
But what was that about? And like, what's your thinking on that now? Because it's okay to be a bit rounded up there, right?
If you look at the shape of the spine, we have this curve. We've got these 3 curves. You've got this cervical curve, which we'll call more of like a feminine curve that goes in. You've got this masculine curve of the thoracic, and you've got another feminine curve of the lumbar. And when you bring your shoulders back and down and lift your chest, initially you're changing the rib cage by lifting the chest. By pulling your shoulders back and down, you're closing your back ribs, and 2/3 of your lungs are held in the back. You're also changing the shape of your spine, which we kind of said there anyway with the rib cage, but you then become this more straightened back. And this S shape of the spine, or these curves of the spine, are meant to act like a coil. So you're meant to create this dynamic movement through these curves working with each other. Yeah, so
kind of hard to do when you're like that, right?
Yeah. And then, what is it? Shoulders back and down, chest up, tuck your tailbone underneath and draw your belly button in. And that's kind of what we're training. And in my class, I'm trying to get you to do the opposite, the complete opposite. But we want to be able to create an optimal space for our rib cage to allow our lungs to fully open and close, but also to, like, the shape of your scapula is this, we'll call it a C shape here. The shape of your rib cage should have that same matching shape. And it should be tensegrally held in the middle of everything. So your scapula is held by your upper trapezius, by your rhomboids, by your SCM, or SCM directly to the scapula. But if we're going to go there, we're looking at our latissimus.
Teres minor, teres major.
Yeah, we've got the anterior, the serratus anterior. You've got all of this stuff that is evenly pulled to hold your scapula. But if you're training it to be pulled back and down, you create this neurological tension, you create this parasitic tension, this hypertonicity to hold structures, and then we don't know how to unhold them. We don't know how to release or ungrip. So, yeah, I think it's opening the shoulder blades at the back, getting a big rib cage, and this isn't a slouch. It's only a slouch if your pelvis is out of alignment. So if you're sitting on your sit bones, creating almost an anterior tilt of the pelvis, then you're going to then almost feel like you're flexing your upper thoracic spine. The relationship between the pelvis and the spine should create the optimal curves and shapes that come through, rather than just trying to do the upper back and then letting the pelvis come under and just compressing the front. This is definitely a slouch.
You see a lot of that too. I've noticed that as well. Like people being like divoted in here.
Some people hold in there, yeah, for sure.
Like your bones start bending and things too when you start holding yourself out of shape.
Well, it's it. Like you were saying, what happens? Does it happen at the nervous system when we create change, or at the tissue? It will happen at the nervous system initially, so you'll hold neurologically. But in that matter of holding neurologically, your brain wants to be efficient. So rather than me neurologically holding, I become structurally held. So my body will lay down more collagen fibers. If you're not getting
You're talking about the
fluid,
fascia, right?
The fascia, yeah. If you're not getting fluid movement through
Yeah,
movement,
it like calcifies a bit.
calcifies. The fascia
Dehydrate.
in the space of a couple of hours will bind. It will dehydrate, and the layer above and the layer below will become fascially adhered like cotton wool.
Yeah.
And if you ever ripped open cotton wool, when I work manually, I'm feeling these fascial binds.
Yeah.
Which can open very soft, but if I did that for a number of years, that would, we say calcify, that would happen initially at the level of the fascia, then at the level of the muscle, then at the level of the ligament or tendon, then at the level of the joint capsule itself.
Yeah.
So it all becomes bound when initially it was neurologically.
But is it like, how much of it is like trauma or like emotional response that's stored in there? You think
Deep
that comes?
question. I think that's I think like talk about past lives and childhood shit.
Like ancestral traumas and things
even
like that.
the spin of your DNA is given to you by your parents. So the way your parents vibrate molecularly is in the spinning of your molecules. So that ancestrally is definitely in your system. Some people might grip more here, some people might grip more here. That you can see it in kids. When kids throw tantrums, they're doing this. We do it as adults. We just learn to.
I've seen some adults throw tantrums.
For sure, but we just learn to behave. Like our parents said us to shut up, stop doing that. So when we still have that bullshit, but we socially integrate it and try to look cool as a cucumber, but we've still got these holding patterns.
Yeah.
That if we haven't got awareness, you'll hold on to without, like people holding their breath all the time without realizing. You say,
I do it. I do it all the time. Actually, because I edit this podcast, I can hear what I'm doing with my breath on the microphone. I have to like edit it out. Sometimes I'm like doing this weird squeaking noise, or I can tell when
weird sounds out as well. But edit my weird sounds out as well.
I'll turn them up. But yeah, it's really fascinating because I didn't realize I was doing it, and now I'm like super conscious about it.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the awareness part. Then, like, it can be as extreme as going to doing a silent meditation and bringing your awareness to the breath coming in, the breath coming out, and that's obviously the deepest part of that awareness. But just every so often, even while we're talking, going, how do my sit bones feel?
Yeah.
How does my rib? Can I be more comfortable in this position while I'm listening to Anwar jibber jabber? Like, if you can have these conversations, if you can have these conversations with yourself.
I'm always thinking about my. You know, I'm kind of obsessed now. You know, like
good.
Good. I really am. Like I think I'm going to get into this work at some point. Like I feel like I'm on a journey with it, and obviously I got a lot to sort out, but I think somewhere I'm going to bring it in. Like I'd like to just study for my own learning. But what about training, Anwar? Like what's your training like these days? Because you're doing Muay Thai, you're doing kettlebells a little bit.
Yeah. I got injured. We were just talking about before. I got injured 2 months ago, so I'm just getting back to training.
With your eye, right?
Yeah, I got my retina detached while I was training, and I was meant to have a fight in Muay Thai. So I've been training last year.
You look like you've licked a frog there. Or
you
something.
See it, yeah. That's it. I feel like a Homer Simpson, or is it Mr. Burns?
No, it's Homer Simpson. Yeah.
So I was meant to have 2 fights. Well, I was meant to have a fight twice last year, and the first time, 10 days before, I broke my ribs. So that knee in the chest and clinching.
It's crazy in there. What a person doing?
It's hardcore. Was it no pain, no Muay Thai? That's kind of the rule, I think, apparently. Fuck. So I broke my ribs, and that was almost 2 months, like 6 weeks of not training. I think that's where you might have saw me last time with the rope. That's all I was able to do. And then, it's 6 days, I think 5 days before my fight, I got my retina detached. So I kind of want to fight. So I started training last week. That was my first week back after having 2 months off, 1 month face down in recovery, which is, I don't wish anyone any of this recovery, but I'm really happy my eye has kind of come back. But
so I don't imagine a lot of people would have discipline to do that. What's required to heal that?
I wanted my eye best opportunities to have my full recovery back.
Yeah.
It would have pissed me off if I had only done half the time and had whatever recover. Like my eye's not back yet, but
What's it look like out of that eye?
kind of looks like I'm about to trip on mushrooms. That first move, everything's like wonky
Wobbly.
and wobbly. Like your head's. Have you seen what is it? The Beetlejuice. You know the guy with the little heads.
Yeah.
So when I look, everyone's got this really shrunken head that's got like a weird shape to it, and then these disproportionate shoulders. So I try and use.
Oh, great! I'm
this
looking great,
eye.
Anwar. That's fantastic.
I try and use this eye more.
Okay.
So yeah, but at the moment, my training, a typical day would be some sort of one-to-one Muay Thai. Like I'm doing privates in the mornings in Muay Thai. I'll then do jiu-jitsu at 10, followed by my class. At 11, I'll then do Pete's kettlebell class 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then at 4 p.m., I'll do the Muay Thai class or the fighters class. And then I'm doing probably an hour of additional mobility, that probably 20 minutes in the morning, I would say, of stuff. But I do a good long warm up before my training session, so it's more there. But I probably do an extra 20, 30 minutes in the morning and maybe 30, 40 minutes in the evening of extra stuff that just kind of complements what I need. And I rock climb at the weekends.
Yeah.
That's my training.
So it's very all very like human-based movement stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do kettlebell swings over doing a deadlift because of how that transfers into athleticism and performance.
I just did the KCA one with Pete on the weekend, and
How was that? Congratulations!
Amazing.
Are you KCA level 1 now?
Level 1, yeah.
Woohoo! And 2?
I would have done 2, but I actually I was recording a podcast, but also I think there's a lot to integrate from level 1 already.
First one for sure, yeah.
So I'd rather actually just do that one.
He's got his video series on YouTube that I think you get access to that now.
Yeah,
It's very basic instructions, but he's so good at those 2 or 3 minute videos.
He's the best.
That you can get, like, that's pretty much what I did at the beginning. Like I learned most of my kettlebells through Pete. And when I came to teaching his class when he took a holiday, I was like, fuck. So I just watched his videos to get his instructions, and stuff's really good. Nice
It's
work.
really good. So like the thing that blew my mind was like I didn't realize you could do all these different like rotations with the arm. So that for me now is, I think, a really good one for my pelvis and my rotation is the thumb.
The thumb in.
Thumb in, you know?
Yeah. I would,
like,
I know a lot of Steve Cotter, the guy we're talking about, he's passed away, but I think his son's going to be like taking his legacy on a little bit. And I know you can get access to his training. So Steve's got some really cool, and he comes from a kettlebell sport background, so it's very technical, but he's got really good tips and tricks as well.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Nice. It's such a simple tool, the kettlebell, and there's so many things you can do with it.
Yeah, and if you use it, like you're talking about, what was it, 20 level reds? I can't even remember. Wait, 32s, yeah. So, but if you can learn to move them efficiently and comfortably, you can create, I'm swinging 64 kilos on kettlebells, and it is hard, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I could do that same athletic movement if I was trying to do a snatch or a clean, or I don't know, there's just this... It's like this really comfortable tool that you can learn to...
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I'm obsessed with the kettlebell. I love it. And what about your certification, Anwar? Because you're starting to certify.
Oh, mine, yeah.
Yeah, is that a...
I've run loads of workshops the last couple of years since I've been back. I've seen Pete's... I remember Pete's first workshop in Tiger. He did it as a charity event, He did it as a charity event, and that was like 7 years ago, and it's amazing to see his progression with his certifications. And since I've been back, really, then the last 2 years, I've been running workshops every couple of months and refining what I'm teaching. And yeah, I did my second certification a couple of weeks ago. I've got my third one coming up in a few weeks, yeah.
What is it, the certification?
I call it the fundamentals of human movement, and it's trying to teach the principles of the fundamentals of human movement. So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail, but it's just everything that requires you to function well and including our environment of sitting in chairs, because that is part of our environment, even if it's a thing that we're not so happy with. So then what it takes to be in those positions, and then from that, how we can then get stronger, create strength, endurance, ultimately build mobility around it, and what it means to be mobile. So then it's everything I've learned over 20-something years of coaching, it's in that certification. So I'm using strength conditioning protocols of how to optimize strength endurance or how to optimize stability or power, but I'm using that in relationship to developing the joint capsule, developing the quality of the movement. And then when I'm using breathwork from DNS and breathwork from Butuko methods, I'm using it from PRI, I'm using some principles in rotation from David Weck, from functional patterns, and from other things that might contradict some of their works, but stuff that I found from other people, and then integrating that with like how FRC uses joint independence, but then creating this integrated movement so everything that I've kind of learned.
So it's like you've synthesized a lot of all the really good stuff from all these different modalities and through your own learning.
So then from that, I'm trying to teach people who either at the workshop level want to learn more. So you can come to the same certification day as a workshop and learn, and it will give you a 6-week program. You get an online course.
What are you running that through, the course?
Train Heroic at the moment.
Okay.
But as it grows, I'm probably going to have to take it off platform because it doesn't quite do the thing. I like Nutty's setup, but I also I like how he releases the video at the right time.
Should think about a school community.
I was thinking about that. Pete's just using school.
Yeah.
It's $100 a month at the moment, and
I'm also setting one up. I'm paying for it.
I don't think I've got the return of investment at the moment, really.
Yeah.
Really, I'd rather pay the money. If I'm thinking of $150 a month, I'd rather put down a couple of grand and develop my own thing from the ground up. So I'd rather save the 3 years of money.
What, you mean like to build the software?
Yeah.
It's so much to maintain when you build your own software.
Kind of. Like I've got enough of an understanding, and there's a lot. I can't remember who it was here, but one of the guys put the functional patterns website into a website builder or track, like
like an AI tool, and it basically like you can do that with there's tools you can do that with, and it just basically shows you how it's built, or it just makes like the template.
So he's using a template.
Yeah.
And the template was $1,000.
Yeah.
So I like that if it's a template, so I'll discover that later.
But you're putting it through Train Heroic?
Train Heroic, yeah, and it's easy. It does everything I need at the moment. I have to do a follow-up. So at the moment, I'm managing a good amount of clients that I've almost automated it on with Zapier and an email
that's
coming
pretty
through.
cool.
So yeah, by the end of this week, it will be all automated, which is cool. But like I built my website, I put Square into it. It links to a payment page. It automatically gives you an email. You get access to my YouTube videos.
You do this all yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it takes a while to learn this shit, but
no, it's valuable skills.
Yeah. So I'm managing that quite well at the moment. So I've got quite a few people that but it will get to a point where if it does, which it should do, and it will do at one point, but if it hits that tipping point, I'll need someone to run it full time, and I'd rather shift to then.
No, I got it.
A better platform.
Yeah.
But Pete, I call my canary in the coal mine. So
I got to talk to Pete about the school stuff too, because I actually talked to Pete about this like earlier on before he got onto school. I was like mentioning, it'd be a good idea, but I think you have to. It's not a course. Like you got to get out of the mentality that it's a course builder.
Yeah.
It's actually a community.
So that's what he said, yeah.
Yeah,
so
which I
he's
think,
using it for the community part, which I like.
Yeah, but it's a whole different kind of way of thinking of building a community rather than selling an online course. So anyway, I got to catch up with Pete about that too at some point.
Yeah, I'll be curious to find out what's going on there. But yeah, Pete's doing that. So I look at what Pete does. When he fucks up, I'm like, okay, I learned from
we
Pete.
don't go down that road.
I'm not going to do that one. And so once Pete's established, I'm like, okay. I'll check it out. So
That's funny.
yeah, it's good. It's nice to have someone a little bit ahead of you in regards to having made some mistakes, having put some stress and blood into something.
Yeah,
and
send
then
him down there first.
Yeah.
So when's the certification?
The next one is the 22nd of Feb.
Okay, so this will probably be out after then.
Probably, okay.
Yeah, this will be out after it's already on. So where can people find more information about what you're doing?
Check my Instagram. I train for it. Or my website is
I'll put the links.
Fundamentals of Human Movement, and that will give you more information on the 6-week course, the app, and then my certification and workshops. So depending on what level people want to take the information from. And
is there
come Bangtao and train.
Yeah, come to Bangtao. Is there anything else worth mentioning before we wrap this up?
I don't know.
Did we miss anything? Anything good?
Probably so much shit. I forget. We'll have another one at some point.
We can do a round too. Okay, and well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's
Thanks
been a
for your
pleasure to chat with you.
Nice.
And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to another episode of Design on Purpose. As you know, I'll put all the links for Anwar down below in the description. And there'll be another fresh episode next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anwar.
Thanks, hon. I was so awkward at the beginning.